Welcome to this Q&A session for the film Half Elf, which is part of the 31st edition of Nordisk Panorama Film Festival. This film is not only nominated for New Nordic Voice, it also has a chance to win the Audience Award. So don't forget to vote online after this session. My name is Robert Goodman, and I will be the host of this Q&A. And I have the pleasure of talking with Jón Bjarki Magnússon, who is the director of Half Elf. Well, Jón, congratulations on completing your first feature-length film.
Thank you very much.
The subjects of your film, Trausti and Hulda, are your grandparents. Why did you decide to make your first film about these two extraordinary people nearing the end of their lives?
So I come from a background in journalism, but I had kind of shifted, or I wanted to shift focus and learn more about documentary filmmaking. So I was doing a master's program in visual anthropology in Berlin, Freie Universität. And when thinking about my final project and what it should be, it got stuck on my mind I don't know, I got this idea that maybe I should follow them around and make maybe a little bit of a final project about them. And as soon as I just had that idea, it just grew and I couldn't really get rid of it. And it felt very strong also that if I would not follow up on it at this moment in time, it would not be possible. So it grew on me from then on. And I would also say the project itself did so. I finished the program in 2018, but I've been working on the film since then. So it grew very much from a smaller idea to this film. Yes, and it was because of course they were 99. My grandfather 96 at this point in time. He was preparing for his 100th birthday, but also his own funeral. And I felt that it was a very interesting point in time and interesting characters, of course, but also to have this possibility to dwell with people of this age at this point in life with a character that is also kind of preparing or half preparing at least this kind of final goodbye. So there were a lot of things that came together that it just started to feel very, very strong on me. Yeah, the whole idea.
Great. The lighthouse appears to be in a very remote part of Iceland. So my question is kind of factual here. How long did they live there and attend the lighthouse?
Yeah, they lived there for 39 years. It was from 59 until 98, and I grew up in the town Siglufjörður close by. So during my childhood, it was kind of like a second home, this lighthouse there. And when I am growing up, it is not as isolated as it was when they came there first, because when they came there first, there was no road. So they actually came by boat with their small family of five children. And there was no road there for close to 10 years. The first 10 years, the only way to get there was either by hiking through the mountains for quite a few hours, which was sometimes impossible during the winters, or by boat. So they would get supplies from the Coast Guard and live in this very isolated place and attend the lighthouse and the animals around the farm. But they came from a very remote place before that, in the west part of Iceland. So they were used to that. But at least there were other people living around. So I do know that for grandmother, this was a kind of a rough change to live in this isolation. But she always talked about what saved her was to have all the books and to read them, and some of them over and over again, to keep herself company during the dark winters.
And when was the last time they visited the lighthouse? Because they were living in Reykjavik, right?
Yes, the last time they visited the lighthouse So I start filming 2017. I do a bit of filming during the summer, and I think their last visit to the lighthouse is during that Christmas, so around 2017, 2018, Christmas and New Year's. Yeah, and because their son is the lighthouse keeper and weatherman at this place at the moment,
Okay.
Sauðanes with the lighthouse. So it's still a part of the family.
It's also amazing that they continue to live by themselves independently, despite their advanced ages. Is there a lot of public support in Iceland that enables elders to remain in their homes?
There is. They did get some help, for example, with housekeeping, but most of the things they did themselves, as you can see in the film, ordering the groceries, and this is how they would just get it sent home. There is definitely help for people, but at the same time, I do think that compared to their age, etc., they really felt like they wanted to stay as long as they could at home, and it's kind of during the filmmaking that that grandfather gets a bit sick and moves to the elderly home, yeah.
So for everyone who's, less than familiar with Iceland and its history, what role do the hidden people or elves serve in Icelandic culture?
Yes, so this is just to start with, not the theme that I thought the film would evolve around, but something that came up and throughout the process of filming and then editing, I felt like it was the theme that kind of bound the whole thing together, and I started to research that more and look into that, and also with the thesis that I wrote accompanying the film as the project, as following the master's project. I started to look a little bit into all of that, and of course, so if we look at my grandparents, who were born in 1918 and 1921 in a very isolated part of Iceland where there were no roads at the time, and we could say like the modern times as we know them had definitely not arrived. Elves and hidden people were very much a part of the landscape, of the rocks, of the stones, of the environment around, and one of the things that grandfather told me about that is that his grandmother Vilborg á Felli, she was very much an advocate for the elves. She was very much teaching him about how to behave around certain rocks and how to maybe not go close to a certain rock or talk about some other rock who was a nicer one with nicer elves. So this was very much a part of his childhood and their childhood. And as Iceland, let's say, moves into industrialization, we say like around World War II, we can say that it was one of the poorest countries in Western Europe. But then with the martial aid, with the American military arriving, there was a very, very fast progression. There was a very fast movement into, we could say, this modern world that we are now living in, and throughout that process, maybe parts of this kind of ideas and beliefs slowly faded away, but they have always been there and are still strong with people, maybe more as a kind of a part of our cultural heritage today rather than like kind of real beliefs, you could say so. But at the same time, when I was doing and making this film, my grandfather had not been the greatest believer in elves as when I was younger or anything like that, just like people of his generation. But I did feel, and as we kind of felt through, for example, they were kind of coming into his dreams, they were visiting him, and it became this kind of maybe a metaphor for kind of reaching childhood again, or moving into this new realm, or this hidden realm of the other side. And so it is very much a part of our cultural heritage and of our culture. And what I also found very interesting is that when I was looking through interviews with people of their generation, speaking about elves and who are asked about elves, most of them would say first, oh no, there's nothing like that. You know, they would kind of defend against being believers in that. But if they were asked a little bit more, there would always come a certain story about a rock behind the farm, or this or that. So there's this. What can you say? Uh, there is this line that people are kind of moving around, like whether they do or not, and it still is definitely a big part of our culture. And one thing I would like to add is, it has become, of course, in today and modern times, more of a kind of a cliche about Iceland abroad. Like, oh, people in this kind of tiny island, they are cute little people that believe in these elf creatures. So in that sense, I have also been a little bit annoyed about this idea, how it has been kind of made working, but at this point I had no control over it. It became this kind of part of the film, and a very kind of something that I kind of, yeah, I like to explore there with my grandfather and my grandparents. Yes.
The pacing and perspective and framing decisions you made reminded me of the Japanese fiction filmmaker Uzo's work. Um, which films and filmmakers did you draw your inspiration from?
Oh, I would say, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's rough to say exactly which ones. We did watch a lot of ethnographic films in the program, and so it would be this kind of, in the beginning it would be more this idea of that I wanted to be a kind of a fly on the wall, so to speak, to kind of see, you know, their everyday life. But at the same time, I would say Jean Rouge was very much of an inspiration in the way of actually, I don't know, at some point feeling the limitations of just being a fly on the wall. There is a way you need to maybe accept fiction or performance as a way uh, to actually portray reality in a more real way than if you just stand aside. So there was definitely a learning curve for me throughout this whole process. About the filmmaking itself, the framing, it would be more of kind of a decision that I made kind of slowly throughout the process of wanting to get their the slow pace. I would start with filming more like a journalist. I would say I come from a journalistic background. I would start with the camera and kind of move too much around and not focus enough. And I kind of learned from that that I did not want to make the film in that way, and slowed very much, and started to use the tripod and started to frame the film in this way of trying to get these kind of slow moments, these stuck frames, these kind of images of that. Yeah.
So you kind of started out with the kind of direct cinema mode.
Yeah.
With a little, I mean, there's a little mix of cinema verite kind of style where you're a little more participant. But yeah, I thought it was the slow pace worked really well, I think, for the story for me.
Yeah, and we could say like, for example, like there's a scene in the bus stop that kind of comes again and again. This is kind of, and it kind of, the filmmaking evolved more into, at least with these certain scenes, into these games that we played, that me and my grandfather played, and these performances that my grandmother played. And it was also about finding, you know, how do they want to perform themselves? It's their last chance, or you know, one chance to portray, you know, who they want to be and what they want to show. And for my grandfather, it was easier because he's more of an extrovert character, so he really wanted the attention much and was ready for that. It took longer to find that that voice of my grandmother in that, but through the poetry I realized that this was like her element. This is where she kind of got lost in herself and in the moment. So this was all a process that I went through. And for example, with the bus stop where he's kind of singing and playing, this was a kind of a game between us that where he he really wanted to, and I kind of maybe pushed him a little bit. Okay, so what about this? What about that? And yeah.
I thought it was very successful in the context of the film. So what are you working on next? I know that this is this is the kind of the second phase of this. You finished this film and now it's trying to get it out and have people see it. But what's your next project that you're moving on to?
I am just in the midst of it's been a little bit, as everyone knows, it's been a bit of a hectic few months of like trying to figure out where to screen and how. I actually had two premieres canceled already, so at the moment I'm more I have some ideas in my mind, and I'm thinking about them, and I'm like, and I'm also trying to see if they have that kind of correct feeling of like following through. So I'm just working on that at the moment. And yeah, I have nothing like set in stone. I have not decided exactly what I will do next. I'm just in a little bit of a break here in Iceland, working in a fish factory for the moment because I came here to premiere the film and then this was cancelled. So I'm waiting out to see if I can screen it in a cinema later on, but we will have to see. And yeah.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck with the film, and I assume that your ideas are for more films.
Yes, this is I really fell for this, and I did a short film in the program also, and took that around a little bit, and yeah, my heart is there, and this was a very rich experience, and I'm very happy that this was kind of my first big project. It's very much worth it, and I will definitely continue. Yes.
Well, thank you for participating in this Q&A, Jón, and thanks to the audience for watching. Remember, there are many other fascinating films to enjoy, so tell your friends, and don't forget to vote for the Audience Award.
Thank you very much.